Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to be working on the classic HL hinge. This is a surface-mounted hinge and it seems to have made its first appearance with the invention of the frame and panel door. The example that I have here would have been the lower hinge, and the top of the door would have gotten a similar hinge, just flipped horizontally. The L portion of the hinge was used to strap across the cross members of the door and would take the pressure off of the mortise and tenons and the pins that were holding the whole thing together. These hinges come in all sizes. The larger ones are obviously used as a structural part of the door, but the smaller ones just seem to be used as a decorative element because that was the style at the time. Today I'm going to run a bit of an experiment, if you'll bear with me. I'm sure the L portion of this hinge was made by either welding two pieces together or notching out one piece and then bending it around and welding the two halves together. But today I'm going to try forging a square corner on this thin flat bar. I've never tried a square corner on a thin stock like this, so it should be interesting. So the flat bar that I'm using for the body of the hinge is 1/8 of an inch by 1.5 inches. Barrel of the hinge is going to be welded from a separate piece of 1/8 inch plate, and it's 3 inches wide. So bending a square corner in a thin flat bar like this is the same process as any other type of bar. The first thing you need to do is put a bend in that corner that gets it around to the 90 degrees. Unfortunately, with a thin flat bar like this, that takes a little bit of time because you don't really have any good way to apply pressure to the edge of a thin bar like this. It just wants to buckle. So the best approach is to just take your time, not try to do too much work with any one heat. Just bend it a little bit, straighten it out, put it back on the fire, keep the heat up, and then just cycle through your heats as quickly as possible. Also, you don't want to make the mistake of trying to bend too sharp a corner in a piece like this. The wider the piece, the more you need to give it a wide bend and then refine it later on. And that's basically what I'm experimenting with here. I know I could put a bend in a thin bar like that, but can I refine it back to a square corner after it has such a large curve to it? So basically from here on out, I'm entering uncharted territory. I'm pretty sure it'll work, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm already positive it's not a very practical way of doing this, but still, I want to see if I can get a square corner out of this. So the process here is pretty much the same as for the initial bend. I'm going to refine the shape a little bit. It's going to buckle and twist out of the way, and I'm going to take it over the anvil, flatten it out, and give it another heat and start the process over again. I'm making progress here, but I'm still not sure I'm going to get all the way there. The outside corner is starting to square up, but there's still a really good radius in there that I have to get rid of. I am noticing though right around here that now that I have some of the material upset into the corner and the bar is a little bit more of an even thickness, it doesn't seem to have a tendency to buckle quite as much. So I'm actually getting a little bit more work done than I was initially. That's interesting. So these are all the heats that I used to do the square corner on this bar. I didn't leave anything out. I just fast forwarded through the whole process so it wouldn't take the 45 minutes or whatever it was it took me to actually bend this corner. Now that I have the material that I need into the corner and it's shaped basically the way I want it, I have to go back to the anvil and start straightening everything out and clean up the bars that lead up to that square corner. Here you can see a problem that developed when I shaped the square corner, and it's actually a pretty common problem with any square corner. The edge of the bar that isn't supported and doesn't have any resistance is starting to ride over the actual corner that does have some resistance. I need to upset some material to get that part to move. So that quite often forms a cold shut in a bar, but it's a little more obvious here because of the scale. So what I'm going to try to do is use my cross peen to push some of the material back into that corner. I'm using a heavy hammer because it has a nice wide flat cross peen so it won't damage the surface of the work. And finally, I'm just going to take a little bit of time to get everything straightened up and cleaned up. So there you have it, a square corner in thin stock. I'm actually quite impressed with how it did work, but it's definitely not the way that I would make these hinges. I think a much more reasonable approach is to take a hot cut and then cut a notch out of the bar where you want the bend to be. The notch doesn't need to be cut to any particular angle. It just needs to open up the bar enough so that you can bend the two halves of the bar over each other and make that 90-degree angle. You don't need to make a very neat cut with the hot cut. You just need to get it to a point where it's going to start breaking through. And then at that point, you're going to be able to take it over to the vise and grab that notch and tear it away from the bar. Before bending the piece into a 90-degree corner, you're going to want to prepare the scarf. So you need to thin out that section so that when it overlaps, you can weld it into a reasonably smooth seam. It doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of these old hinges, you could see evidence of the weld joint. They just had to be functional. They weren't really too concerned about totally blending in the weld. It's certainly better to leave the scarf joint visible than ruining the hinge by trying to blend the weld in perfectly. Now you're ready to fold the piece over and weld it. And then as always, you finish off by taking a few heats to clean everything up. Next time we'll weld the barrels onto these straps and complete the hinge. Hi, I'm Dennis, and thanks for watching. If you're interested in supporting this channel, the simplest way, of course, is to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have questions and you want to contact me directly, you can do so by emailing me at either one of the addresses that I have listed here. It may take me a couple of days, but I will get back to you. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.